When it comes to building new characters, are you thinking about what really matters, or are you just filling in lines on a character sheet? My name is Hayley, and I'm an author, writing teacher, and editor. I have taught workshops on writing for thousands of people, and time again, I see writers making the same mistakes when it comes to character development. They will spend hours focusing on details like hair color or profession or special powers, which are important and fun to think about. But those details are not what actually makes for compelling, memorable, and most importantly, real characters. In reality, to craft compelling characters, you just need to make sure you answer 3 key questions. In this video, I'll walk you through what those questions are and how to apply them as you design your characters. The first question you need to answer about your character is, what do they want? Every great character is actively chasing something. In other words, they have a goal. Now that goal might be to protect themselves from future emotional pain, or to get revenge on a rival gang, or to find the love they've been searching for all along. Whatever it is, having a goal is going to create the necessary tension for your story to move forward. It's also going to provide almost a decision-making framework that will influence the decisions your characters make throughout your story. Let's look at this in practice. So let's take the example of Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. From almost the very first page of The Hunger Games, we learn that Katniss's primary goal is to protect her family, specifically her sister Prim. Every single thing we see Katniss do in those first few opening chapters is all about how to keep Prim safe. We see Katniss go out beyond the fence, hunting to bring food back for her family. We see her going to the Hob and trading with people to bring back money and trinkets and more food for her family. Every single thing she does to make sure her family is healthy and safe. Because we see from the very first page how important protecting Prim is to Katniss, it makes absolute sense that when Prim's name is called in the reaping, Katniss volunteers to take her place. There's almost no other choice she could make because Katniss's primary goal is to protect Prim. Now, in your story, most of your characters will have both internal and external goals. The external goal is going to relate to their specific circumstance, which means that as their specific circumstances evolve or change throughout the narrative, that goal can shift or change as well. External goals are typically tangible. They're visible to both the characters themselves and to us as readers. So the characters are aware that they have these goals. They could articulate these goals themselves. If we return to the example of Katniss, as I mentioned, she starts out with this very clear external goal of protecting her sister Prim and her broader family and friends. Katniss would definitely be able to articulate this. She probably even does articulate it in the first few pages. Later, as Katniss's circumstances change, as she volunteers to take Prim's place in the Hunger Games, she develops this secondary external goal of surviving the Hunger Games. Even though Katniss doesn't really feel like she has a chance of surviving, her goal is to survive so she can go back to her family and continue to protect and take care of them. Again, this external goal of surviving the Hunger Games is super obvious to Katniss herself. Even if she doesn't think she can survive, she can articulate that she has the goal of survival. A character's internal goal, on the other hand, is deeper. It's this often unconscious or subconscious need that will drive their actions. The internal goal is typically related to the character's wound and belief system, which we'll talk about in just a second. An example of an internal goal might be overcoming a personal failure, or connecting deeply with someone, or finding a place of belonging. Typically, internal goals are not as visible to the characters as they are to the readers. So while a character could clearly articulate an external goal, they might not be as consciously aware of what their internal goals are. So again, if we return to the example of Katniss, Katniss has this external goal of protecting her family and surviving the games, but she has this internal goal of wanting to stay herself, to protect who she is as she goes toe-to-toe with the oppressive authority at the Capitol. Katniss wants to remain true to herself in the Hunger Games, even as they try to change everything about her. This internal goal influences the decisions Katniss makes. She does things like fire the arrow at the games makers. She buries Rue in flowers when she dies. Even though those decisions might put Katniss at risk, because she has this internal goal of retaining her true self, she still makes the decisions and moves forward with these actions. Now, Katniss is not necessarily as aware of this internal goal. She knows she kind of wants to go against the Capitol. She knows she doesn't want the games to change her, but I don't know if she would be able to articulate as clearly, I want to stay true to myself, as she's able to articulate her external goals. And that's okay. Your characters will typically be aware of your external goals, but the internal goals might not be as clear to them. Your character should have goals whether you're writing a romance novel, a dystopian thriller, a crime novel, a historical fiction novel. Whatever you're writing, your characters need a goal. Here's how I'm thinking about it for a romance novel. So I am working on a romance novel that sees my female main character and my male main character connect in this small Scottish town. Now, my female main character is going to have a goal of wanting to feel more connected to her mysterious past. And this mysterious past is going to be related to this small Scottish town. It's actually going to force her to make the decision to go to this town because she has this goal of feeling connected to her past. So again, we see how the character's decision is tied directly to her goal. My male main character, on the other hand, has a goal of wanting to support his family, but retaining his independence from the town. So he is from the town itself, but he has bad memories associated with it, which we'll get to in just a second. So he wants to retain his independence and he doesn't want to be stuck in this town. So every decision he makes throughout the narrative is going to be to try to get him out of this town and to try to remove all ties he has with it. This will create conflict between the male main character and the female main character as she comes to this town and tries to figure out what he's actually trying to do, as he's always trying to escape it. Now, the second question you must answer about your character is, what is their wound? In other words, what hurt them before the story began? A character's wound refers to a past traumatic experience or series of experiences that has caused them deep emotional pain. The wound shapes your character's personality, beliefs, behavior, and the lies they tell themselves, which we'll come to in just a second. This negative experience or set of experiences basically triggers a psychological reaction, the need to protect themselves from that feeling they felt that established the wound. A great example of a character with a clear wound is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne experienced huge amounts of trauma when his parents were murdered. That wound opened up so much about Bruce. It actually is where the character of Batman even developed. It has shaped Bruce so much that he's taken on this superhero identity to try to prevent himself from experiencing the pain he experienced when his parents were killed. Your character's wound might be a single event, like in the example of Bruce Wayne, or it could be a series of experiences that they've had in the past. I would actually place Katniss in the category of a character who has a wound based on a series of experiences. She has a clear wound around the death of her father and the subsequent emotional abandonment of her mother, but the death of her father and her mother's emotional abandonment are tied into the broader landscape that Katniss lives in. She has a huge wound, as most of the characters in the Hunger Games do, that centers around the oppressive authority of the Capitol. When it comes to your characters, you might choose to give them an emotional wound that's related to something like a past betrayal or abandonment from a partner or parental figure. They might also have an emotional wound due to failure or something that they did not succeed at in their past. They also might have a wound that relates to past influences, so perhaps someone in their past was a negative influence on them or led them down a wrong path. They might also have unpleasant memories that they're not fully dealing with. They might also have a physical or circumstantial wound, so perhaps they were struggling with a life-threatening illness or a life-changing injury. They may have lost a home or been forced into exile. All of these come together to create wounds that influence your character's personality and the belief system they have about the world. If we return to my example, I'm going to give my female main character a wound that relates to her mother. So let's say that she grew up extremely close to her mother, who was a single parent. But when her mother died, she really didn't need anyone else because her and her mother were so close to each other. But then after her mother passed away, she learned her mother was lying to her. So it's kind of created this dual wound where she doesn't believe she needs anyone and also doesn't really feel like anybody can be trusted. My male main character, on the other hand, I'm going to give him a wound related to abandonment. So let's say he was abandoned by his previous partner in this hometown, which is why he refuses to connect with it. He feels ostracized and out of place every time he returns to his hometown because behind every single corner is a memory of the failure of his previous relationship. The final question you need to answer is, what is the lie my character is telling themselves? Your character's wound is going to influence this flawed belief system that they adhere to. No matter what your character believes or stands for, what goal they're chasing, when your story begins, your main character has to be wrong about something. This flawed belief system is going to keep them from succeeding in their goal. Giving your character a lie or even several lies that they believe in sets you up to create a really compelling character arc. The trouble for your character is that even though they have a goal, they can never achieve that goal until they overcome the flawed belief system that's been influenced by their wound. For your character to achieve their goal, they need to overcome the flawed belief system that has been put into place by their wound. Let's look at the example of Katniss for it. So we see that Katniss has this internal goal of remaining true to herself, and she has the external goals of keeping Prim safe, keeping her family safe, and surviving the Hunger Games. Now, Katniss's wound is related to the oppression she feels from the capital, the abandonment of her mother after her father's death, and this just general sense that she cannot rely on anyone. And that has created this flawed belief within Katniss that she can only trust herself. She is the only one she can rely on. She can't even rely on her mother to help keep her fed. Katniss is so incredibly self-sufficient that's become this belief system where she doesn't trust people. And the irony is that for Katniss to achieve her goals, she actually has to overcome that mistrust. We see Katniss's mistrust time and time again when she turns away help from characters like Peeta or Haymitch or Finnick in later books. She always meets them with resistance. But it's only in learning to overcome that flawed belief system that she can ultimately survive the games, stay true to herself, and try to protect her family. The flawed belief system is the foundation of your character arc. A great story does not just have external conflict. The real magic happens when that external conflict is related to the internal battle your character is fighting against their own beliefs. Ultimately, your character needs to overcome this flawed belief to achieve their goals. By setting up internal and external goals that your character cannot overcome until they address the flawed belief system created by their wound, you create the foundation for a really compelling character arc and a way for your readers to look at where your character began and where they ended, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. If we return to my example, my female main character is going to have a flawed belief related to that wound from the betrayal of her mother. She's going to believe that trusting anyone is going to make her weak, so she will resist every single time the main character tries to come to her aid. Ultimately, she's going to need to realize that trusting people is actually going to help her feel more fulfilled and more connected to her past, because if she doesn't trust them, she's never going to learn who she is and where she came from. My male main character, on the other hand, has a flawed belief related to his wound, the abandonment of his previous partner in his hometown. He's going to believe that he cannot return home and still feel himself or still feel independent. So throughout the narrative, he's always going to try to run away from home or get away from responsibilities that his family gives him. He's going to miss the goal of actually feeling connected and proud of himself unless he can overcome this flawed belief system. Your protagonist's goal, wound, and flawed belief system shape every choice they make. Together, they create a character that readers can invest in, root for, and remember. Now that you've got the foundation for a compelling protagonist, the next step is to give them a worthy opponent. Be sure to check out my video on crafting believable villains using Game of Thrones as a case study to continue your character creation journey. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more storytelling insights from Storylab.